Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're really going to decode the reality behind the headlines you've been seeing everywhere. Because honestly, right now, the entire tech industry is waking up to its most massive economic and architectural shift in literally decades. For the last 20 years, we've lived in a world completely defined by the internet, right? But today, we're crossing the threshold into a fundamentally new reality dictated by artificial intelligence. It's a shift that changes absolutely everything about how the biggest companies in the world operate, how they build, and ultimately how they survive. To make sense of this giant puzzle, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, the end of free. Second, the agentic inference shift. Third, big tech's new playbook. Fourth, the AI power struggle. And finally, we'll wrap up with data centers in space. It's quite a journey, so let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the end of free and opportunity cost. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive change we're facing. The golden age of zero marginal cost software? Yeah, that's officially over. Think about the internet era. If you built a killer app or a website, serving your millionth user cost practically the exact same as serving your first. It was this incredible world of software abundance. But the AI era? It's the complete opposite. We're talking staggering capital costs, massive hardware requirements, insane power consumption, and real physical scarcity. AI is literally slamming the constraints of the physical world right back into the tech industry. And because we're now strictly bound by physical hardware, we've hit a brand new bottleneck. It isn't marginal cost anymore, it's opportunity cost. When you've got a limited number of AI chips, every single time you use one, you're actively choosing not to use it for something else. And this matters immensely to you and me. Hyperscalers, giants like Microsoft and Amazon, they have to choose which products actually get computing power. Like recently, Microsoft missed some cloud growth targets. And it wasn't because of a lack of demand. No. It was because they literally had to prioritize their own internal AI copilots over their external cloud customers. They had to make a tough choice. And those choices are directly dictating the tools that will be available to us tomorrow. Moving right along to Section 2, the Agentic Inference shift and the broader compute shift. So you might be wondering, what exactly is driving this insane demand for hardware? Well, the answer lies in agentic inference. We are rapidly moving past the days of just typing a prompt into a chatbot and tapping our fingers waiting for a response. Agentic inference is all about AI agents completing really complex, continuous tasks behind the scenes, completely without humans in the loop. And because there's no impatient human sitting there waiting for a split-second answer, the whole priority shifts. It's no longer about raw, blinding speed. It's actually about massive, continuous memory capacity so the AI can remember its context over long, drawn-out workflows. Let's move to and see how this builds across the three major steps of AI evolution. Step 1 was training, which meant using massive clusters of network GPUs to build the brains. Step 2 was answer inference, basically chatbots spitting out text tokens to humans as fast as humanly possible. But Step 3, agentic inference, fundamentally unbundles that traditional GPU architecture. Because these agents are working overnight or just humming along in the background, they don't actually need the absolute fastest, most bleeding-edge processors. What they desperately need is vast, cheaper memory to maintain that context. And this totally flips the script on exactly what kind of hardware the industry needs to be building. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Big Tech's new playbook and their wildly diverging strategies. Faced with this incredibly capital-intensive, hardware-constrained era, the titans of the industry are rapidly splitting up in their survival strategies. Take Apple, for example. Under Tim Cook, who's actually transitioning to executive chairman in 2026, Apple has played a notoriously safe, device-centric game. Instead of burning hundreds of billions trying to build frontier AI models entirely from scratch, they're sticking to what they do best. They're relying on their absolute operational mastery of supply chains and just safely integrating third-party AI into the devices that are already sitting right there in your pocket. Just look at that 74% revenue block for a second. Apple is fundamentally still a hardware company, and this massive hardware dominance gives them the luxury of focusing on lower-risk, highly personal AI tasks. Think about Siri securely accessing a photo of your driver's license on your phone, rather than trying to write up a complex corporate financial report. Apple knows a core truth about us. Consumers fundamentally want to be entertained, not productive. And the beautiful part for them? You don't need a trillion-dollar frontier AI model just to be entertained. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between the different physical moats of big tech. We just saw Apple relies on its billions of consumer devices. Amazon, on the flip side, is leaning hard into its massive physical logistics network and its own custom-built AWS chips, positioning itself to literally sell the infrastructure to everyone else. And Google, Google is acting like a massive capital engine, taking its enormous search profits and using them to fund mind-boggling amounts of physical cloud infrastructure. I mean, just look at Google Cloud's trajectory. It is wild. They went from losing over $1 billion in the first quarter of 2019 to generating an absolutely incredible $6.6 billion in profit projected for Q1 of 2026. Google has managed to turn its cloud business into this highly profitable engine, which sets the stage perfectly for their aggressive, just relentless investment in future AI infrastructure. Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number, $80 billion. That represents Google's recent equity raise. And get this, it included an unprecedented $10 billion investment from Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, wow. This proves a really vital point about our new AI economy. Cash itself is becoming the ultimate weapon. Simply put, whoever has the most cash can secure the most compute capacity. And that compute capacity brings us to Section 4, the AI power struggle at the frontier labs. So with all that cash and compute on the line, let's peek at the hidden motives of these top-tier labs. Anthropic, for example, recently issued a pretty dire safety warning about their unreleased Mythos model, claiming it is just too dangerous to release because of some highly advanced cybersecurity risks. Now, I want to be clear, those security risks are absolutely real, but we also have to acknowledge the iceberg beneath this PR surface. There's actually a massive, hidden economic reason why keeping this model locked away greatly benefits them. So the crucial point is the underlying economic reality. By withholding their absolute most advanced models from the broader public, Anthropic is actually saving themselves from massive opportunity costs. Remember what we talked about earlier? Compute is incredibly scarce. If they unleash this thing to millions of everyday consumers, their servers would literally melt down. Keeping it restricted preserves their precious compute for the high-paying enterprise clients. And critically, it totally prevents open-source competitors from scraping and distilling their cutting-edge tech. This creates such a fascinating contrast with Meta. Meta is out there aggressively pushing their open-source Muse model. Why on earth would they do that? Well, because Meta's entire business relies on consumer advertising. They don't have a massive enterprise cloud business they need to protect. Therefore, they can dedicate their compute entirely to consumer AI and essentially give the models away for free, all without cannibalizing their own bottom line. They have zero enterprise opportunity costs, which gives them this massive strategic freedom in the consumer space. All right, buckle up because we're moving to Section 5, Data Centers in Space, the ultimate extreme. We are now taking the harsh economic realities of AI compute to their absolute most spectacular orbital extreme. $26.5 trillion. That is the jaw-dropping AI total addressable market estimate that was buried deep inside SpaceX's S1 filing, right ahead of their planned $2 trillion IPO. They boldly claim to have identified the largest actionable market in human history. Now, let's be real for a second. On the surface, proposing an AI market size of $26 trillion seems completely absurd, right? It's almost silly. But once you stop laughing and actually look at the physics of the problem we've been discussing, Elon Musk's wild vision perfectly solves the exact core bottleneck we've been tracking this entire explainer. Seriously, think about the hard science here. Down here on Earth, our power grids are maxed out, and local communities are fiercely blocking data center construction with zoning laws. But space bypasses all of that. You get constant, unimpeded solar energy 24/7. And remember what we learned about agentic inference? Because these AI agents don't require instantaneous sub-second human interaction, we can actually use older, slightly slower microchips for them. And it turns out, those older, larger chips naturally resist space radiation way better than the fragile bleeding edge ones. It's this completely brilliant, almost poetic match of physical constraints and software needs. Which leaves us with this final vital question. If compute really is the new oil, who controls the universe? Think about it. We have officially shifted from an era of infinitely abundant, zero-cost software into a brand new era defined by extremely scarce physical hardware, massive capital requirements, and frankly, unimaginable power demands. The race to secure this compute is totally reshaping global economics, and as we just saw, it might literally take us to the stars. So keep your eyes on this space, because this trillion-dollar power struggle, it's really only just beginning. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.